Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dauphin County Democratic Committee's Democratic Candidate Town Halls. I am Rajette Harris, and I am the chair for the Democrat Party here in Dauphin County. I am joined tonight by Patty Smith, who is running for state representative in the 104th District. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. I just want to remind all of our listeners and watchers that you can ask Patty your questions directly by just typing them in the comment box, and she can see them and will be able to answer them. So to start, Patty, why don't you tell us what makes up the 104th District? Because as you know, it's land-wise, it's very big.
Yeah, and it's really weird looking thanks to gerrymandering. It's to me it looks like a goldfish or a beta fish, but yeah. So I have Susquehanna Township. I go up the mountain, so I have Dauphin, Halifax, Millersburg. I go right to the Likens line. I loop around and I hit the Gap down into Lebanon County. I have some parts of Swatara Township, Pembroke. So I've got a big district. It takes about 45 minutes to go from end to end. It's pretty
Wow.
long. Yeah. Yes,
Now,
and I did have a picture of it, but I don't have it handy. But yeah, it's absurd looking. My district.
now you ran 2 years ago and came very close to winning. I'm assuming that's part of the reason why you ran again. But what is the reason you want to be a state representative? What is it that you feel you can do that the current individual isn't doing?
I can be an independent voice. Um, my opponent is Sue Helm, and she is very partisan. She's a straight party line vote always. And, I am one of those individuals who can see things from all points of view. I can see things from a Republican point of view. I can see things from a Democrat point of view. So I really am, when I say I have an independent mind, I really am truly an independent mind. I've been a government watchdog for a very long time. And, in that, I don't want to say line of work because you don't get paid for it. But
Right.
when you do that, you end up going after Democrats and Republicans.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Really, you're just looking at the facts and how those facts are going to affect the everyday public. And I want to fight for the people who have been ignored, the people who are not wealthy, the people who are not well connected, because their voice has not been heard in a very long time in my district, and it's time that we're represented.
I'm glad to hear you're an independent voice. We can see not just on the state level, but on the federal level as well. We have a lot of followers
Yeah,
and people who aren't not just speaking up for what's right, but representing the people who elected them. So
yeah,
I'm glad that you actually admit and come out and say, because that's always one of my questions: will you be an independent
yeah,
voice?
yeah. And when I'm talking to voters, I always get, "Oh yeah, you say that now," till you
Right.
get in there, right? But the truth of the matter is that being a government watchdog is a really hard life, because you do make a lot of powerful people angry. And when you're doing that and you've got something on them that they have done wrong, you get harassed. I've been stalked, I've been threatened. Um, I've had people sit out in front of my house in their vehicle trying to intimidate me. And I have never broken, never, not once. And that's what I tell to people when they say, "Oh, when you get there, it'll be different." And the answer is no, it's not, because it would have been easy for me to turn my back on things that I knew, things that I saw. It would have been a much easier life for me. But I've never done that, because for me, what's right is the most important thing, um, even over what's easy for me. So, yeah, I'm going to stay that way.
And you're running a grassroots campaign, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
In 2018, we had a lot of volunteers, but we didn't have a lot of money. and I didn't have a name that most people knew. So it was a hard road, but I'm very proud of how well I did in 2018. I got very close to winning, as you mentioned,
Good.
and that's because when people talk to me, whether they're Democrat or Republican, they see that I do represent them. You know, we've gotten too partisan in this state, in this country, where Democrats and Republicans have been spoon fed the fact that we're different and that the other side is bad, the other side is wrong, the other side wants to ruin your life, and that's not true. We're a lot alike. In fact, we're
Right.
more alike than we are different. And so when I talk to people, especially Republicans, um, they're really shocked after they have a conversation with me. They're like, "Holy cow!" They're probably when they shut the door, they're like, "What just happened?"
Right.
But yeah, it's really important, especially now that we have people who aren't going to play games. Too much is at stake right now. We've got to heal the country. We have to heal our state, and we have a lot of work to do. And if we've got people in Harrisburg that are fighting, just simply because they want their side to win, we're never going to get over where we're at.
Right. Right. We have a question here from Beth. She said that you had great insights regarding the school districts in the 104th. She'd like you to share those thoughts again. Can you tell our listeners, for those who don't know, what school districts are in the 104th before you respond to that, please?
Yeah, so I have Central Dauphin, I have Susquehanna Township, Halifax, Millersburg, Middle Paxton. So I've got a large number
A
of
lot.
districts in my district.
Yes.
And again, the needs are very different. We have rural schools, we have Central Dauphin, who has a mix of students from different walks of life, different locations. You have Susquehanna Township that is more suburban. I'm not sure exactly what thoughts those are because I have a lot of thoughts on education, so I don't know which one
Well,
she's talking about.
let's start with the coronavirus. How do you feel about schools opening? As you know, some are virtual, some are
Mm-hmm.
hybrid, some have opened.
Yeah.
Do you know what the school districts in the 104th are doing? And as a state rep, what can the state do to assist the schools? Since, as you know, we have received no leadership from the national
No.
level.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of schools are doing the hybrid thing. Some are strictly over the internet. Central
Right.
Dauphin, I know, was there was a big decision that they had to make, the school board, as to whether or not they wanted to go back full time in person. I know a lot of the teachers did not want that, and I know that some board members did not want that. If that's what Beth is referring to, I think it's a little too early for our kids to go back to school full time. And I stood with the teachers of Central Dauphin School District. I think they should have remained virtual, well, in a hybrid uh, schedule. And now they're having outbreaks of COVID
Right.
very shortly after they've gone back full time. And I think that shows the danger because, you know, when you're in a hybrid section, um, it seems like, well, that's obviously the answer, right? Because kids are only there a couple days a week. But you have to remember that the teachers, the administration, they're there all week with kids coming in and out all day, and it's dangerous for them. So, I understand that some children do better when they're in person, when they're around other students. Um, I know Representative Patty Kim has started the community classrooms that
Yes.
kind of addresses that problem. So it's in school or in person learning rather, but it's still virtual, and kids get that one on one with an adult to help them through. But there's only 25 people um, per community classroom, so that really helps parents who have to work and
Right.
who have no clue how to handle their kids at home. Um, the other issue with schools that I'm extremely passionate about is funding. And, right now, Pennsylvania has what they call a fair funding formula. And that is just a way for them to look at all the schools across the state and narrow it down to certain things and compare apples to apples. So it's supposed to be a way to fully fund all our schools fairly. The problem is that they do not run 100% of that education money from the state through the formula. And I won't get into the weeds too much, but the problem that that creates is that you have schools that are underfunded every year
Right.
from the state. And so if you look at Central Dauphin School District, they're underfunded every year by almost $8 million. You look at Susquehanna Township, they're underfunded by almost $2 million a year. Now, that's money that they are rightfully owed from the state of Pennsylvania through public education funds, but are denied because the state won't run that money through the formula. What happens when schools are underfunded? Those schools still have the same bills to pay. So
Right.
they're going to go to their residents and they're going to reach in our pockets and they're going to raise the school taxes because they have to raise that money somehow. And if they're not getting it from the state, they're going to get it from us. And that's why school taxes are so incredibly high. Um, and that's why kids aren't getting the education they deserve. Really, in Pennsylvania, the quality of your education really depends on your zip code. And it shouldn't be that way. Um, I get asked a lot why I care about public education when I don't have kids. And the simple answer to me is because these children, whether they're mine or yours or somebody in Philly or somebody in Pittsburgh, they're our future.
Right.
And don't we want, when we age out of the workforce, don't we want the people coming in behind us to have the best education, to be the most well-rounded they can be, to have had diversity education, to be empathetic towards others? Like, these are all things we need to be teaching so that the next generation can heal the wounds that we have created. And that's why I'm so passionate about education, even though I don't have kids.
What about the digital divide? One thing that the COVID-19 has also shown is, as you mentioned, do you think that's due to a funding issue? Central Dauphin School District, you mentioned. As you know, there's a lot of controversy. You brought up gerrymander about how those lines are drawn as
Yeah.
who goes to Central Dauphin and who goes to Central Dauphin East. And as
Mm.
we both know, the schools are not equal in
Right.
a way. So when you look at that digital divide, do you think that's a funding issue or do you think there's much more to it? And is there anything as a state representative you can do to help that?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot goes into these divides. I don't think it's just funding. I think there is a lot of biases that go into to education in schools. I don't think that it's absolutely intentional, but I think it's been going on for such a long time that it is now just built in.
Right.
Um, I honestly believe that as a state representative, I can have a major impact on our schools in my district. I have said many times publicly, and I'll say it again tonight, I realize these are all recorded. So have at it, keep me accountable. But my plan, once I'm elected, is to sit down with every school in my district. I want to sit down with the teachers, and then I want to sit down with the board and the administration. I want to do that starting out quarterly. And I want to be clear, I'm meeting with them, not my staff, me. I want to meet quarterly and I want to know, what are your challenges? What are your goals? What can I help you with? Let's put a plan together, right? So, in a perfect world, what would this district have? What would this district look like? And
Right.
let's work together to accomplish that. Once we have our plan, then we can move forward. And, I want to be a part of bringing these schools what they need. I want to be a part of giving them the voice that they haven't had. You know, school board members are doing the best that they can. Our teachers are doing the best that they can. They have no resources. I mean, when teachers are paying for supplies out of their own pocket,
Right.
like, we've got a problem. Okay, teachers have to have a master's degree. Do you know how expensive that is? And they're making peanuts. And they're teaching our generation to run the world. It's absurd. It's upside down. It's backwards. And so, yeah, that is what I'm going to do for my schools in my district. And you know, eventually we won't need to meet quarterly, but initially I want to commit to that, because we need to move forward fast. In my opinion, we need to get there quickly. And so let's start working on it right out of the gate.
Well, it's obvious education is a passion for you.
Mm-hmm.
But what? Tell us some other pieces of your platform. What are you running on?
Yeah, obviously reform is a big one. I When you start running for office, people say you have to have a top three. You have to have your topics. You have to have the top three issues you're going to run for. And I constantly say that's not possible, because I care about like 100 things and they're all equal. So thank you for not asking me what my top three is. um, yeah, I care about healthcare. You know, I have family members who have uh, lacked in insurance. I had a family member who actually thought they were having a heart attack and would not go to the hospital because they couldn't afford it. You know, we had a family member that needed mental health care. It was an emergency. We were afraid they were going to hurt themselves, and we could not find them a bed anywhere. We could not get them the help they needed, because our mental health system has been completely decimated. Our entire, not entire, the in general, our legislature has turned their back on that. And good mental health is the basis for a strong community, a strong state, a strong economy, a strong family. We've got to do a better job of funding our healthcare and the mental health care too. And having access to affordable healthcare is another thing, because if you go into the rural sections of my district, you know, up above Millersburg, it's a long way to get to the doctor.
Right.
They have very limited public transportation. So if they have to come down here for a doctor, it could very well be an all-day trip. And you know, that's a good example of how none of these issues are standalone. You know, you can't fix healthcare and make sure everybody has access to it if you don't fix public transportation in rural areas. You can't fix COVID in the schools without having broadband access for the rural communities and the people in your district who can't afford it. So all of these issues are interconnected. You know, jobs, we need to raise the minimum wage. When people are making $7.25 an hour and working full time, they're still below the federal poverty level. Okay, that means that they can't afford rent and medication. They can't afford food and rent. It's a horrible way to live. And when our legislature, okay, I did a comparison, you know, my opponent, in the 14 years she's been in office, her salary has gone up over $16,000. $16,000 in 14 years. But the minimum wage has stayed the same at $7.25 an hour. These people in Harrisburg who are making close to $100,000 a year do not think that we deserve a living wage. Let that sink in. It's disgusting, it's irresponsible, and it's just cold-hearted. And then you have the environment. You know, our environment is at a critical tipping point. Pennsylvania is just beautiful. We have so many resources. here in our state, and they're in danger. My opponent scored a zero out of 100 on the most recent environmental scorecard. So, she's literally voting to destroy the planet we live on. And I don't know in what universe that makes sense.
Right.
Um, but that's why I'm so committed to reform, because if you don't have true reform in Harrisburg, we're not going to get any of that done. Reform is the foundation, because right now, corporate lobbyists, the well connected, the wealthy, they're running the government. They're running our state, because Pennsylvania, being the sixth most corrupt state in the country, based on how many elected officials have been convicted of a crime, you can still legally buy your very own politician here in Pennsylvania,
Yes.
because we have no finance reform, we have no gift bans. And so that tilts the scales in terms of tilts it in favor of the people who can afford the influence. So we really have to have reform in order to have all those other things that we need.
Is it fair to say then that some type of reform bill would be the first bill you would introduce if elected?
Absolutely. We have got to stop the gifts. We have to have campaign finance reform. They have it on the federal level, but we don't have it
Right.
here, in Pennsylvania. And we've got to get rid of the dark money. When it becomes impossible to trace who is donating to a candidate, to a specific candidate, that means it's impossible to trace who they're voting for, right? And that's the way they want it. They want all those deals to be done in the dark of night. And we have to shine a light on that. We've got to close that loophole. Yeah, and another thing that goes on in Harrisburg that just disgusts me is the fact that one party won't allow legislation to move forward that's coming
In
from
the
the other party.
committees.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I really think we've got to have a law that says if you have a majority of House members sign on to a bill, it's automatically coming up for a vote. None of this sitting on your hands, none of this sitting on this until they wink, wink, give you something you want. No, Pennsylvanians deserve better. And we've got to cut the gridlock. And if they won't do it because it's the right thing to do, then we're going to have to force that issue. And, that's where it starts, in my opinion.
That actually would be a very good bill. Because if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not mistaken, the Democrats are only what 9 seats away from
Yes,
having the majority in the House.
that's right. And, I'm not I'm not naive enough to think that Democrats won't play this game
Right.
too. Okay, let's be
Exactly.
honest. They both do. They're both going to gerrymander. They're both going to play these games. We've got to have reform to protect Republicans from Democrat games and Democrats from Republican games, and from us from all of it.
From
You
all the
know,
games. Exactly.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Right. And if I'm not mistaken, Sue Helm will not debate you. Is that correct?
She will not debate me. And in fact, she won't even show up to the reforms. I'm sorry, the reforms. I've got reform on the brain. To the forums. She's been invited to every forum that I've attended. And she not only didn't show, but never bothered to respond. So, in 2018, when I ran against her, she had a town hall scheduled, and she very famously canceled it because Democrats were coming to ask her questions. She is very afraid of being held accountable for her votes. She doesn't want to answer any questions. On the other hand, I'm an open book. I believe what I believe. Um, if you come to me with a different opinion, I want to hear you out, because you may have that piece of information I've been missing, and you very well might change my mind. But I've had almost 40 town halls since March, and they've all been open to the public. Um, I had a town hall a couple weeks ago that was just for Republicans, no Democrats allowed. So I'm not afraid to talk to people um, who are different from me. I enjoy it, actually.
it's unfortunate that some of our elected officials forget that they represent the people
Mm-hmm.
and should have to. You would think you want to explain why you voted the way that you voted. It's unfortunate that some are hiding from that.
Yeah.
But if you are elected, what committees would you like to sit on?
I would like, here's a shocker, to be on the ethics committee. Um, it's a little difficult, when the legislation is investigating themselves. So I think it's
Right.
important to have a true independent mind on those committees, one that is used to standing up and calling someone out. So I would really love to be on that. I'd also like to be on the Government Oversight Committee, because what they do is they make sure that our government programs, the Commonwealth's programs, are actually meeting the needs of the public. That is an incredibly important committee to be on. And again, I think we really need to have an independent voice on that committee, one that's used to looking at things from the outside, and one that can really fight for the public and their best interest at heart. And I'd like to be on the Appropriations Committee because, of course, that's where all the money is handed out. That's
Right.
where the deals are made. And I really want to be a part of that conversation.
How would you handle pushback from, say, Democratic leadership? Because you're really stressing that you be an independent voice. And as you also mentioned, both sides like to have their way.
Mm-hmm.
So, how would you handle that pushback from your own party if you want to do something in the best interest of your district, but it might not be um, the party platform or what the party would want you to do?
Yeah, so this is this goes right to the heart of my personality because look, I've got a big mouth. I'm not afraid to open it, and I'm not afraid to say my piece of my mind. I'm always used to standing up for the people who don't have a voice, and you know, when as a government watchdog, when I've seen something that's wrong, I've stood up and I've stood against it. And the best way, if you cannot solve the problem, right? I am not opposed to solving a problem between two people behind closed doors. What I'm not going to do is make deals and sell my voters, my constituents down the river, so that I can extend my political career. I'm not opposed to standing up and saying, hey, they're trying to twist my arm. They're threatening me with this, they're threatening me with that. And when you come out ahead of that and you make a statement like that, it becomes very difficult for them to do that because then it's like, yeah, see, I told you. Okay,
Right.
this is the price I'm paying for standing up for you. And, people don't like that at first, but I know that my voters will respect me for it. I know that I'm not going to win over everyone in the state house. But what I can promise is that I will work with everyone for the state house. But I will do it in the best interest of my constituents. I will reach out to them on my website and say, this is the bill that we're talking about right now. This is what this bill means. Here's a survey. What do you think? What do you want me to do? How do you want me to vote? And then I'll vote. And once I vote, I'll put it down on my website why I voted the way I did so that it's always transparent. But I am not going to have any problems whatsoever standing in public and saying they are trying to twist my arm and I'm just not going to do it. Because that's how politics has been done for far too long. Um, on Facebook, I was talking with a Republican in the comments section, and I said, when I get there, like Harrisburg is broken. The parties don't work with each other. They're constantly trying to pressure people in their own party who want to do an independent thing. And I had a Republican senator speak up and say, well, you talk a good game, but politics is a team sport, and you're going to get there and you're going to find out that Harrisburg's broken, but there's not a darn thing you can do about it. You have to do what leadership says. And I said to him, you are the problem. Thank you for just outing yourself, because you're admitting that there's a problem. You're admitting it shouldn't be that way, but
Right.
you are going along with it so that you can further your career. And that's not what you were voted to do. It's a team sport because people don't stand up against it.
Right.
You have leadership that is twisting people's arms because people keep voting them in year after year after year. It does not have to be that way. I know there's a lot of independent minds in the state house. I know they're there. We just need to join together and create a voice that's loud enough that can't be ignored. And that's my plan going in there. And I believe in my voters that they will have my back in 2 years, even if my party doesn't.
As you probably have seen, Pennsylvania is starting to report higher cases of COVID-19. Would
Mm-hmm.
you support another shutdown or the mandatory wearing of masks? I found out just yesterday, actually, that voters, for instance, aren't going to be required to wear masks as they vote next Tuesday.
Yeah.
They'll be asked to wear one, but they're not mandated to wear a mask. So, would you support either one of those two, or are you more of the let's strike a balance and follow the rules?
I think there's a balance to be had. I do think that masks need to be mandated. We've left it up to everyone, and it's been proven that there's a large section who just aren't willing to do it. But the real science is that masks do prevent the spread. We need to do a better job of contact tracing too, because if you can follow the people who have the disease, if you can follow where they've been, who they've been in contact with, and we can quarantine those people, then you're not going to need a shutdown because you're going to be
Right.
containing the virus. It's because we haven't done those things. We don't have enough testing. I mean, my husband was tested and it went a week before he got his results. I tried to get tested just on the basis that my husband was being tested, and I was told I couldn't. There's not enough tests to go around. Okay, we've got a problem. And if you don't want another government shutdown to contain this virus, then we've got to do those things that enable us to contain it. I think there's a balance to be had, but everyone has to cooperate.
Right. I have an economy question for you. As you know, there aren't a lot of huge industries here in Pennsylvania. So we have a lot of the best universities and colleges, but a lot of times we lose a lot of our best and brightest to other states due
Mm-hmm.
to lack of jobs here. So, what is it as a state representative? Do you have a plan to help bring businesses to Pennsylvania to for them to want to come here and or to help grow small businesses? As you know, a lot of small businesses have had to close because of
Mm-hmm.
COVID-19 as well. So there's a lot of suffering going around,
Yeah.
but a lot of people that need jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. When you look at business, the foundation of business that makes a business thrive is having people who can afford to shop with them or buy what they're selling, and then having employees who are quality enough that they can run the business and not have issues. And I think that's the way you solve our business problems. We need to pay, again, it comes back to, like I said before, no issue is a standalone. We've got to raise that minimum wage so that people can afford to live again. If we don't do that, then people can't afford to shop at our businesses. They can't afford to pay their rent. They can't afford their medication. All of these things in our economy are hurt because people are spending every dollar they have on necessities and not life in general. When you have people in the community that can afford your business again, it's going to thrive. And the propaganda that goes on with raising the wage is that, well, that'll force businesses to close. But I know for a fact you can have a small business with less than 20 employees and pay well above the minimum wage and not only survive but thrive. I've seen it. It's possible, and it's the right way to go. We also need to do a better job of providing skills training to our employees in the state, our workers, our kids coming out of high school. Not everyone is suited for college. College is not the only path to a successful future. You have trades, you have union apprenticeships. All of these things we're missing out on in our education system, and it's causing employers to not have enough skilled labor. My family has a business, and they've been trying to hire skilled labor for years and are having an incredibly difficult time. That just shows you what we're lacking here in Pennsylvania. These people, who may be in a dying field, Pennsylvania is trying to transition away from fossil fuels.
Right.
There's a whole new world in renewable energy jobs that are just waiting for skilled workers. And that's another benefit to having that, because then we can move forward with our renewable energy goals here in the state. So those are the two things I would do. I know one of the things that's popular is giving tax breaks, to large corporations. But what I've found is once those tax breaks expire, then they move on to the next community who's willing to give them another tax break. So I honestly don't think that that's the best way to go. I think we can bring these industries in by having good workers and a good community that can afford to support them.
We have a comment here from Laura. I'm assuming this is from your previous response about having trouble getting a test,
Yeah.
where athletes are getting a test every day.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, your average person who is concerned about having the virus cannot.
Yeah.
How do you feel too about, like, with the schools? Some of the schools aren't in person, but they're allowing football games. Do you think our priorities might be a little mixed up? Or I guess I'm showing my bias there.
No,
But
I'm giggling because you read my mind, because when you were reading her question, the exact thing that was going through my mind is, yeah, we've got wicked bad priorities. But, when the health of our professional athletes is more important than the health of our frontline workers, we've got serious issues. When people are complaining that we have to open because I can't see my Monday Night Football, it's like, seriously, people, we've got people dying, and you want to be entertained. It's unreal. It's sad that we are where we are. It's sad that life has been put on hold. I get it. It's sad that high school seniors who are playing in a sport that could get them a college scholarship, it's sad that
right.
that's on hold right now. If we can do it safely, then let's do it safely. But look at the NFL. Like she said, they're testing all the time, and they're coming down with COVID, and it's wiping out the teams. They're canceling games because somebody tested positive. It's just not safe. And it's not safe because people aren't following the rules that will make it safe. You can't complain that you can't have what you want when you're refusing to do the very thing that could give that to you. It's just not, it's not an option. If we want things to go back to the way they were, then we've got to take a stand, and we've got to take an ownership of getting there.
Now you have a very diverse district. You already mentioned you have suburban, you have rural, many different ages, races, all the different school districts. As you know, racial justice is a huge issue this year, right now. Do you have a platform on racial justice? Not just criminal justice, but as you know, COVID has shown disparities in healthcare. We
Mhm.
already talked about the digital divide. When you talk about the minimum wage, as you know, women make less than men, and if you're a woman of color, you make even less.
Yep.
Um, Access to opportunities, the list goes on. Is there
Mhm.
anything as a state representative you feel you can help to start bridging that?
Absolutely. And I'm it's things that I've been working on even before I ran for office. It's things I'm working for now, even without having the office. But I think we could start with the easy things, right? Your resume that you submit does not have to have your address on it. The resume you submit does not have to have your name on it. Because what can they tell by your name and your address? Sometimes they can tell or they can guess what race you are. Sometimes they can guess what religion you are. Sometimes they can guess from where you live how much money you have. Those resumes are getting tossed to the side. They can definitely tell what gender you are most times.
Right.
That's an easy way for discrimination to take hold, and you can never prove it. There's been studies that have shown, they've submitted resumes, the exact same resume under a name that appears to be a white person and a name that might appear to be someone of color.
Right.
The white person's name gets called in for an interview and the person of color doesn't. And the only difference is the name on the resume. So, we need to get rid of that. We need to get rid of the ways that people can identify us and discriminate against us. Um, I'm working, I don't know if I want to say this out loud. I'm working with some groups, let's say that, um, to cut recidivism. So I don't want
Okay.
to spill the beans because we're in the very, very early stages of it.
Okay.
But we're working towards ensuring that the people who are coming out of prison have a good paying job when they get out. One of the issues with recidivism is they come out, they can't get a job because they have the record. Then they can only qualify for a job that what makes minimum wage. You know,
Right.
the whole time they've been inside, their family struggling outside on their own, trying to make bills, trying to get food, trying to pay their life, and it becomes incredibly difficult. And it's a lot of times what drives people back into prison is just trying
Right.
to provide for their family when they get out. It's an emergency at that point. And so I've been working with some groups to try to ensure that when they come out, they're going to have good paying jobs. I also have a program that I want to implement. It's called Rescued for Service. What that does is it takes dogs out of rescues and our shelters. Sorry, I had a moment. And puts them in prisons, and so to be trained. And I know a lot of people are probably saying, well, they already do that. But the truth is, those dogs being trained to be pets. We're missing the boat here. These dogs should be trained to be PTSD dogs, and they need to be given to our veterans for free. Right now, a veteran is not given a dog through the VA. They are put on medicine if they have PTSD, and it's shown that veterans who have a service dog are off their meds within 6 months. But veterans, if they want to get a dog, have a 2-year wait. And so in those 2 years, what's going to happen? They're committing suicide. Their families are falling apart. Their marriages are falling apart. They're losing their jobs. They're becoming homeless. Um, we can solve that problem. There's 6 million dogs, well, 6 million animals in our shelters every year that are killed because there's no room. That's 6 million veterans we could be helping. And it's not just helping the veterans, it's helping the inmates that raise those dogs and train those dogs. Because There's a group out in Seattle that's doing something similar, not PTSD dogs, but they have a 0% recidivism rate for the inmates that go through their program. That's 0 people returning to prison after they've gone through that program, because these dogs change them in such a profound way that it's immeasurable. And when you have someone who's not returning to prison, that's
Mhm.
saving our economy billions of dollars. It's $45,000 to house an inmate in Pennsylvania a year. Okay, our prison system is for profit.
It
The
is.
reason
Yes.
we are not making progress on criminal justice reform is because prisoners are worth more behind bars than they are outside in the free world. When someone is a profit center, you're not going to do much to help prevent them from coming back and giving you additional money in your pocket. We've got to change that. And when kids have a parent in prison, they're 7 times more likely to end up there themselves, right? So prison is not just affecting the person who's in prison. It's affecting our economy, it's affecting families, it's affecting the future of children. This is a major problem, and the program that I've developed can solve all of these things with a neat little bow. And I really, really want to work to get that implemented once I get elected.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, that is the end of the questions. So I would like to thank you for joining us this evening. I have your website at the bottom, but if you'd like to tell everyone if they'd like to volunteer in this last week, and they would like to give any last minute donations, where
Yes.
they can go, how they can do that.
Yeah. So you can donate or you can volunteer on my website, www.pattysmith4pa.com. I see your cat's tail is behind you like a shark. It's going, sorry. um, yeah, so pattysmith4pa.com. There's a volunteer form.
She
Right
wants to
now,
say hi to you.
I would like her to because I'm an animal nut. So yeah, so we're knee deep in our GOTV efforts. So we're calling voters who have not yet voted, who have not yet returned their mail-in ballots, just reminding them that Tuesday is obviously election day. We've had incredible turnout in the 104 so far in terms of early voting, and I'm
Good.
excited about that. So, we want to ensure that everybody gets there, whether they vote Democrat or Republican. We want people to vote. It's really important. So, yeah, if you want to help us do that, obviously donations are very much appreciated, even in this last week. We can do a lot with your $30, $50. We can do a lot with that in this last week, and it'll be very impactful to the campaign and our ability to reach voters. So,
Have you found it challenging campaigning this year due to COVID-19? Have you found it more difficult to reach voters, getting your message out?
I think it has been a little more difficult, because the way we used to always do it was knocking doors, and that was free. And
Right.
it was very powerful because you could talk to a voter one on one and you can ask them what's important, what they're looking for, what they need. In this world, everything's on Zoom, and if somebody isn't going to jump onto your town hall, you have no way of touching them.
Right.
So, we've had to lean on the more expensive options, which are direct mail, texting, digital ads on social media, that sort of thing. That's why, donations can still be used right now, the
Right.
week before the election. But we've started knocking doors. We've been doing a lot of lit drops. I was out today, signed a cast on a kid at the door who had fallen and broken his arm. So I was
Okay.
very honored to do that. But yeah, it's been more difficult. But in another way, it's been nice to be able to be creative. It has leveled the playing field because, you know, my
Right.
opponent's been in office for 14 years, but she doesn't know how to campaign in COVID any more than I do. So it
Right.
has really leveled the playing field in terms of the elections, and incumbents who generally have a leg up really don't anymore. So I like that.
What about getting a yard sign? I know we've given away so many of your yard signs at the county parties headquarters, but if someone still needs a yard sign, where can they get one?
Yeah, you can ask for one on the website,
Okay.
or you can email me. My email is pattysmith@pattysmithforpa.com. That is my personal email address. If you send it, it comes to me and I'll answer it, and we will deliver one sign or 10 signs, whatever you need.
Well, again, thank you for joining us. I'd like to end the program with you telling us why should voters in the 104th vote for you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And like I said earlier, I do appreciate how much the Dauphin County Democrats have done for me, and for all of us candidates in Dauphin County. It's really a blessing to have you all behind us and working beside us to better the county and move us forward. So thank you for that. Um, you know, I really honestly believe that I am the best candidate for the 104th. As I said earlier, I'm an independent voice. I've been an independent voice all of my life. And I care more about doing what's right than I care about doing the bidding of any party or any politician or any donor. And I'm going to work hard to reform government so that our politicians don't have a choice but to support us and represent us. I want to level that playing field. But more importantly, you know, I really just want to bring us together again. Um, I'm really disturbed and sad about where we are. That family and friends can't talk to each other anymore because one is a Democrat, one's a Republican. That our neighborhoods are so divided, and you know, I think it's because we're being led down this path by people who have an agenda, and that agenda is not us. I can assure you of that. While we're busy fighting, they're stealing the kingdom and laughing the whole time. You know, if you watch Fox News, you think all Democrats have lost their mind. And if you watch CNN or MSNBC, you think Republicans have their mind. But the truth is, 99% of us live in that middle, and we have more in common than they want us to think we do. And when we start talking to each other, when we start comparing stories, and we start listening, that's when things are going to change. That's when we take the power back. And that's what I want to bring. I want to have, you know, block parties again. I want people talking to people. I want to encourage people of different religions, of different genders, different races, different walks of life to come together under one roof, have a talk. Because when you really get to know someone who's different from you, that's when the walls come down. That's when the racism drifts away. And that's when we can really start working together for change. And you can't change things for the better when you only have one side at a table. Everybody has to have a seat at that table. And that's what I'm going to do. When I win, you're going to win. I will be your voice there. I will give you a seat at that table because it matters to me. That's why I'm running. You know, I had to quit my job at the state to run again this year. And I wouldn't do that if I wasn't committed to not only winning this election, but winning it for the right reasons. Because I want to get reelected. I want to keep being able to change things and moving things forward. And I know you won't reelect me if I don't hold up my end of the bargain. That's how you're going to know that I'm legit. That's how you're going to know that I'm not just pandering for your vote. So, I really would appreciate everybody to take a chance on me. I mean what I say. I've lived this life long before I ever ran for office. And I fully intend to continue that in the state house where I can have a big impact on the way things are.
Well, thank you for running. We need more independent voices in these positions representing the people. So thank you
Thank you.
very much. And
Yeah.
for all of our listeners and watchers, this video will be available on the Dauphin County Facebook page, but also on our YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube by just searching for Dauphin County Democratic Committee. So good night, and you definitely have our vote, Patty. So good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you so much. Good night.